Hey everyone, my name is Olaf, and today I'm going to show how to make this shooting physics animation in Blender. I'm going to show you how to animate a bullet and then make it interact with all the cubes in Blender. It's going to be a fairly simple tutorial, and I will provide the link and download for the finished turret so that you don't have to make everything from scratch. So let's get started. Okay, so as you can already see, we have the finished file from the last tutorial in the scene. And if you want to download this file, you can just do it on my website for free, and then you can follow this tutorial without changing stuff up. You can obviously follow this tutorial without actually having this file up and do it, for example, with a gun you have made. But for now, I'm just going to left click to add a 3D cursor. And this is where the first cube is going to be, as we're going to add a lot of cubes in this scene. So Shift A to add a new object, and then click G Set to grab the object on the Z axis. So G, then Set, and left click to confirm. Okay, I'm going to scale it down with S. Click G Set again to grab it on the Z axis. And now I'm going to go into the modifiers and add an array modifier. And increase the relative offset to 1.1 on the X axis. And then increase the count to, let's see how many we need. Oops, that's the wrong one. You need to increase the count, or okay, click GX to grab it on the X-axis, left click to confirm, and then I'm going to add another array modifier, which is going to be on the Y-axis. So make the X value to 0 and change the Y value to 1.1, and then increase the count, so add as many as you want. Okay, so I think we need to grab it on the X-axis, so click GX to grab it on the X-axis, and left click to confirm. And now I'm going to add the last array modifier. So add a modifier and add another array modifier, and make the X value to 0 and increase the Z value to 1.05. Okay, and then we're going to increase the count, so add as many as you want. And now we need to make these cubes into many separate objects. But before we're going to do that, I'm just going to select the turret and make sure the rotation is as we want it to be. So I'm going to right click on the turret, select it, and I click N to make the coordinates show up. And then I'm going to decrease the rotation on the X-axis so that it's going to shoot straight forward. So right click and I click delete keyframes, and then make the set rotation to 0 or whatever you need to make it straight. And after we clicked I to keyframe it, you can now see that it stops in the right angle. So I'm going to apply all the array modifiers to the cubes. So click apply and apply. And I'm going to go into the rendered mode and see how it looks. As you can see, it doesn't really have any color right now. It's just a kind of white grayish color. So I'm going to add a new material for the cubes and make them blue. So change the color to blue, or whatever color you want on your cubes. And I might make them a little bit brighter. I like this bluish color, so I'm going to separate all the cubes from each other. So we need to go back to solid mode, and then we need to go into edit mode. So tab to go into edit mode, and I click P and separate by loose parts. And as you can see now, we now have many different cubes separated into separated or single objects. And I'm going to click Ctrl Alt Shift C to make the origin point to the center of each cube. And then I'm going to add rigid body to all of the cubes. So we need to make this active and make the collision shape to mesh. And you might also increase the mass of the cubes if you want to make them heavier for the simulation itself. And then we need to make the side menu pop up. So the side menu on the left side is going to pop up when you press T. And then you need to copy from active in physics so that all of the objects get the same rigid body settings. And since boxed objects always get messed up when you have a rigid body simulation, I'm going to go into tab to go into edit mode, and then I'm going to separate these faces on the sides, so the walls, and make them into a separate object. So click P and separate by loose parts. Or no, separate by selection actually. And then I'm going to add rigid body to both of the objects. So first to the floor, and I'm going to make it a passive type. Wait, you know what time it is? I think it's time to save the file. So go into Save As and save the file on your computer, and then enter to save. And then I'm going to just test the simulation and see if the cubes work. And as you can see, they kind of bounce down. And I think I will go into a new layer and start adding the bullets. We're going to add a cylinder, so click Shift A to add a new object. And I'm going to edit the cylinder and make it into a bullet. So click RX90 to rotate it 90 degrees on the x-axis. And I think it's kind of stupid to have it on this layer. So just click M and move it to the other layer. And I'm going to edit it with all the other objects because I think that's better actually. Okay, so click G to grab. I'm going to edit it a little bit above the turret itself so that we can compare the sizes and get it accurate. So let's scale it down next to the barrel of the gun or the turret and make sure it fits into the barrel of the turret. I think it does, so I'm going to grab it upwards again, so click G set to grab it, or just G to grab it upwards, and then I'm going to go into edit mode, and I'm going to click GY to grab it on the y-axis, the face on the y-axis, and then I'm going to click Control B to add bevel to the object, which is going to smooth out, as you can see now, this effect, which gives it kind of a tank bullet effect, which looks really cool. So left click to confirm. I'm going to select the circle of edges on the back, and I'm going to go into proportional editing, enable it, and click G, then Y to grab them backwards on the y-axis so that I can make more like a bullet shape. Okay, back to tab, and then I'm going to add some mean crease to the back of the bullets. So hold in Alt and select it and increase the mean crease value to 1. Add a modifier, and we're going to add a subdivision surface modifier. And since we have the mean crease on the back, it's not going to smooth out the back of the bullets. So it's going to look like this. I think we need to add some subdivision surface to the front part also because I want it to be flat. So increase the mean crease value to 1 on this circle of edges, and it's going to look like this. And I think it looks pretty enough. We're not going to see it very well because it's going to move so fast, but I think it looks okay. Okay, so let's grab it down to the barrel. So click G set to grab it on the Z axis. And as you can see, it fits inside. And I think it's time to animate it soon. But make sure to click G, then X, and see if it's totally aligned with the barrel. Okay. The next step is to animate the visibility of the bullets. So I'm going to grab this one down, the scene objects, or the list of all the objects in the scene, and I'm going to animate the visibility of the bullet. So let's go down to the selected objects, so cylinder 3 in my case, and then just click I after you remove the visibility and the render visibility, and then just move one frame forward to the frame where you need the bullet in the animation, and then just enable it again and click I to keyframe. Okay, so when we go back and forth, you can see that the bullet is going to disappear and reappear. So let's go back and see. As you can see, it pops up when we need it, which is great, so that the bullet doesn't like show up in the animation in a strange rotation or something. Okay, so I think it's time to add some physics to the object, so add rigid body physics, and we're going to animate the animated selection actually. So we need to enable it first and make sure the weight of the object is pretty heavy so that it's going to have a kind of a powerful blow to the cubes. And I'm going to click I on the animated and click I, and I on the location and scale. And we're going to move forward in time to when the barrel has gone a little bit backwards. I'm going to keyframe the location right before it shoots out, and then when the barrel has gone backwards, I'm going to click GY to grab it on the y-axis, and then left click when you have the location you want to have. So I'm going to left click about here, and then I'm going to click I, and I to keyframe the location, rotation, and scale. And then I'm going to start animating the animated. So I'm going to keyframe the removal of the animated, which is going to make the bullet fall down and not be animated anymore. I'm also going to increase the sensitivity and the collision margin to 1 and friction to 1, which is going to move the cubes a lot more, which is going to make the bullet a lot more powerful. So let's just see how it looks. And boom! As you can see, it works very fine. And you now have a gun physics animation, which is cool. So I'm going to add even more to this animation. I'm going to add another bullet. But before I'm going to add more bullets, I think it's time to save the file once again. So you need to go back up to File and save it. So I'm just going to give it a new name, which is going to give you different files, so that if you mess up something, you can still go back to the original file, which is good. And I'm going to go back to the bullet now and start adding a new one, or duplicate this bullet. So let's zoom in and then go into wireframe mode, set to go into wireframe mode, and I'm going to duplicate the bullet. So click Shift D to duplicate it, and then click G, X to grab it on the X-axis, and left click to confirm. Let's just make sure it's in the middle. Go to number 7 to go to the top view, and I think it looks good. I might grab it a little bit on the X-axis once again, and I'm going to clear the keyframes because we're going to make a new animation for this bullet, because this one is also going to have physics. But at least the visibility keyframes are still here, so that we don't have to keyframe it again. And I'm also going to clear the keyframes for the animated, because we need different frames for the animated physics to be added and removed. So let's start animating it. I think we need to keyframe the location right before the turret goes backwards. So click I, and I, and then keyframe the animated one. And then I'm going to go a few frames forward until the barrel has gone a little bit backwards. And then click G, then Y to grab it on the Y-axis. Just make sure to keyframe the animated and animate the location. Oh, we actually need to move it first. So click G, then Y to grab it on the Y-axis. Left click to confirm. And then click I, and I to keyframe the new location. I kind of messed up. And then I need to remove the animated and keyframe it, and that way the bullet is going to fall down afterwards, because the physics are going to work again. They're not going to be animated anymore after that frame. Like this. And it looks really good. We now have two bullets interacting with the cubes. Right now we're actually done with the most important part of this tutorial. So now I'm just going to add some physics to the wall, and I'm going to change a little bit up with the animation of the turret itself so that it rotates more before it starts shooting. And I'm also going to show you how to animate it and make it into an animation. So let's select the walls and then add a passive type rigid body. I actually tried adding collision, but it doesn't really work. So I'm going to add a rigid body, passive type, and then make the collision type or collision shape to mesh, which is going to be the best option. So let's go to the last frame and make the simulation start again and see how it looks. And now all the cubes are going to smash into the wall, and it's going to look a lot more realistic instead of the cubes just going right through the wall, obviously. So the next step is going to be to animate the camera, and I'm going to right click to select the camera and then right click on the coordinates and clear keyframes. Okay, and then you want to save the file once again in case Blender crashes. So I'm going to name this turret 6. So let's move the camera a little bit by clicking Shift F to go into the flight cam mode, and then move around with W, A, S, and D so that we can see both the turret and the cubes, and left click to confirm the location you want to have on your camera, like this. And then I'm going to scale up the walls a little bit, so click S set to scale them on the Z axis, Shift set to go into rendered mode again. And I think we need to add some more light because it's kind of too dark right now. So let's go back to solid mode and make sure we have some proper lighting. So Shift set and then select the lamp or sun, right click to select, and then click Shift D to duplicate. And I'm going to add a little bit stronger sun on this side. So click R set to rotate it on the Z axis. And as you can see now, we have more light in the scene. And let's just go through the animation one more time to see if all the physics work, especially with the new wall. The reason I'm going through the simulation one more time is to see how far the cubes go out after they have been shot, so that we know how far we're going to zoom out with the camera. I'm going to keyframe the coordinates of the camera, but you don't really need to because I'm not going to keyframe the location that much. I'm just going to keyframe the sensor size so that the camera zooms in and out. But you can obviously move around with the camera as well. So click I on the size, and then move a few frames forward, and I'm going to increase the sensor size so that the camera zooms out a little bit, because if we zoom out physically, we're just going to run into the walls. It's obviously not very professional to just increase the sensor size, but that's what I chose to do in this tutorial. You can obviously do whatever you want in your animation. Okay, so I think it looks good for now, so I'm just going to render out the scene. So let's just go through the simulation one more time, and let's just click render. I kind of speeded up the whole process now, but we're actually going to start rendering the animation now. So scroll down and make sure you have a folder for your finished images, because we're going to render these images into PNG files. So just give the folder a name wherever you want on the computer, and I'm going to call it turret gun animation, and click enter, and then select the file, or select the folder actually. It's over here, and give all the PNG pictures a name. It's not really that important what they're called because they're just images that you're going to render out to an MP4 file later on. So just make sure that you play out the whole animation so that the whole simulation is played out before you start rendering. And I'm going to make the end frame to, no, the start frame actually from frame 40 and make the end frame 250. And then I'm going to click play one more time and make sure the whole thing is played out. I don't actually know if you need to do this before you start rendering, but I just like to do it to see how it looks and just to make sure everything is calculated. So before I'm going to start rendering the animation, I'm just going to change two more things. First off, I want to make the lighting a little bit stronger. So I'm just going to increase the strength of the lights. So I'm going to select the first sun on the right side and then increase the strength to, let's say, 8, and increase the sun size as well. So I'm going to increase the sun size to 1.5. And then I'm going to select the turret because I'm going to rotate the turret a little bit more because I want a little bit more turret action or turret movement in the animation. So let's just right click on the turret to select it, and we're going to change the animation movement a little bit. So you're going to click N to make the keyframes or the coordinates and sizes and stuff show up, and then I'm going to delete the keyframes. Then I'm going to rotate the turret on the Z-axis, left click to confirm, and then I'm going to click, I'm going to make it 90 degrees, oh actually minus 90 degrees. And then I'm going to click I to keyframe the location, rotation, and scale. So let's just go through the animation one more time. And as you see, we already have some keyframes left over from frame 1, so I'm going to delete them. And now everything works fine, I think, so we can actually start rendering the animation. As you can see, the physics works just fine, the rotation works just fine, and the bullets physics work. So yeah, let's just start animating, or rendering actually. Click the camera icon, and then you want to click animation, and it's going to render out a lot of PNG images that you can turn into an MP4 file later on. This is what it looks like in the end. I think it looks great, so thank you for watching.